Hi, it's Tom B of Old Tom's Wormery. This is the fourth month of showing you my stacking bin. My stacking bin has 4 layers. I consider that minimum. These bins that have 2 stack, they're a lot of work. And then some of them have more layers, which is even more convenient because you end up with a more completed product. Um, but this is the fourth month, which means that the tray that I started 4 months ago is now at the harvest. So I'm looking forward to showing you that, showing you what a well mixed feeding of browns and greens gives you as a product. It's still a little wet because it is the bottom of a stack, but it's not bad. And I also want to show you a different way of harvesting them. Normally, I take that, I knock it off and carry it away for other methods of getting the worms out, usually using the filter. At the moment, I've got a batch that's using the bait cups. I've also in the past used the rinse method where you rinse the compost away from the worms, making a worm tea and rescuing the worms. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that bottom tray, I'll fluff it a bit, and then I'm just going to set it on the top. And what it does is acts as a filter. And so the worms don't like the light, so they'll go down. I'll scrape off the top surface. They'll go down. I'll scrape off the top surface until we get to the bottom of that tray, and they crawl right through the grating into the tray number 2. And then I would add my normal starter feed. Today I'll just pile it on. The worms won't be ready to scrape yet, but you'll see it's an easy way to start a harvest. So let's open this guy up. You'll see me removing the worm. You'll see me removing the fly prevention blanket. I had flies at about week 2 of this month, and so I threw the blanket on there. They were gone within a week or 2, and I'm finally getting around to touching it again. So I'll pull the blanket off for your amusement. And so let's just run through this real quick. It's way too long a video already. All right, so here's my worm factory. I've really got to get these people to sponsor me. I used to think this was kind of a toy. I didn't respect it until I started using it. And now I realize it really is a real worm bin. It produces the castings that make your small garden pretty happy. So take off the lid. We take off the fly barrier. You'll notice there's no gnats. It was pretty annoying there for a little while. There's the worm blanket, helps maintain the moisture. And so this top tray, interestingly, a couple of days ago it was fairly warm, and now it's cooled down. And even when it was warm, there were still worms crawling happily in there. I'm not happy with how full it is. I've got like an inch between the bed and the top of the plastic bits. So what I'm going to do is I'll toss in a little more food. That's some chopped collards. This is my normal kitchen food waste. So it's got a lot of paper towels. It's got a lot of coffee. I thought I had some peppers in here. Must have been the other tray. So there we go. So it's still not full enough. So earlier today, I chewed up some newspaper. You remember when I started this project, I added newspaper to the first empty tray, and I've realized I don't need to do that. I don't add any bedding at the start of a tray, but I am finding that I want this tray full, so I will add extra bedding at the end. And since we know these bins run kind of wet, I'm going to leave this dry and see how it does. So let's get rid of this top tray. Let's see the second. Lots of worms here, very happy. You see the grid pattern having great contact. It's squeezed down to being about half full, and that was from a fairly full tray. But this is clearly the bed where the layer where the most worms are the most happy, probably because it has the most well composted food. Get their 2 out of the way. Here's tray 3. This one, as you can see, it's very close to finished. I didn't fill this tray as much as I like, so this one's not making as much as, so next month will be a smaller harvest than usual. By the looks of it, it looks pretty ready already. So where I tell you all that it needs to take a month and a month and a month, I do that because it's easy for me to remember, and I actually get to this and do my stacking bin project at the end and beginning of each month. You might be able to go a little faster. All right. So here is our harvest of the stuff that was the first tray we filled, the first layer that we filled for this project. It has shrunk a little more because we talked about how as all these critters in here breathe in and out, all the microbes, all the worms, they breathe out CO2. The carbon to make the CO2, carbon dioxide, is coming right out of all the paper towels and other carbons that we fed them. I mean, that's what is metabolism. You take in food, which includes a lot of sugars in most humans, most Americans, and you breathe it out as carbon. You burn that stuff in your body, and it burns away as carbon dioxide. All right, so this time, I'll be setting this tray aside for just a minute, put all the other trays back in place, and I'll be right back with this tray still full of this compost. Let's see if I can get it to go without that bottom portion. This bottom portion tends to stick. Also, I noticed I've got a larger than usual collection of gunk in the bottom of the stack. So let's give that a scrape away, and I'll toss that into the top bin because clearly this stuff is finished. It's a little wetter, but not that much wetter than the tray that was just above it. So, and that stuff goes. There, that's out of the way. So this was tray 3. It's now the bottom tray. This was tray 2. And this was the top tray. And there's another convenient thing about filling it with newspaper is the gunk on my fingers nicely rubs off onto that newspaper. This could be anything like cardboard. If you still have any of that cocoa core left, they love cardboard. And I just find it real amusing to tear newspaper. If you need newspaper and nobody gets the newspaper, unlike I do, I love reading the paper. If you don't love reading a paper newspaper, go down to your local library. They still get the newspaper, and then they've got piles of this to get rid of. And they'd really rather give it to you to feed to your worms rather than throw it in their own trash. All right, so this was the bottom tray, and I'll be leaving the lid off of it. And so overnight, the lights I have on in my garage and the wormery will force these worms to push down. And so they will go down and bury themselves a little deeper in this harvest. And so then I'll scrape off the top layer until I start seeing worms, and I'll stop. I'll go off and do other stuff. I've got a day job. I'll come back later. I'll do another scrape, and it will take, because this is so wet, the worms won't go down very far. So it will take probably 8 scrapes, 6 scrapes maybe. And what that'll do is push them all the way down. They'll go through the grate on the bottom, right there. They'll go right through that grating into that tray below. Pardon me. Overnight, the newspaper in there will probably moisten up, and the worms will have no problem going through there. And so we'll pull that out, mostly worm-free, to use in the garden. And the worms will then be forced to work within the stack. So other than not watching me do the scrapings tomorrow, that's the harvest. Normally, I would have pulled this out and thrown it away. I have 2 more cups of the food to give them tomorrow. I also had brought with me, in case I didn't have the newspaper, in case I'd lost it like usual, I was going to show you that these cardboardy egg cartons are a really nice carbon for these guys. And one thing to let you know is, even though this label looks kind of shiny, if it tears, it's paper. And the worms eat that stuff anyways, even though it's shiny, even though it's blue. The old days of being toxic ink on there are gone. And so if it tears, it's paper and the worms will eat it. All right, that's enough. I'll see you in a month.